Good morning, one and all. Please do get your last teas or drinks and make your way to a seat. Choose a seat, any seat. He's standing, deciding on a seat. There's quite a few chairs you can choose. It's all right. What's the warmest? Yeah, it's not warm. But I think it's warm, but I'm not in shorts today, so that feels like I've gone all winter on you. So, good morning, one and all. Lovely to have you with us on this lovely day. SJ is with us, hiding in the far corner over there. She'll be speaking later on Matthew, and I think it's Creche and youth. Youth staying in.
Youth is staying in.
Creche is with Chris, and kids is with Louise. I remember these things. So we've got a few things, and we're going to also do a little bit about Baba today, our compassion sponsored child. So I think that's it from me. Anna, would you like to join me and play guitar? Did you really?
I did really.
Did she learn in front of the church? So we're going to stand and sing Waymaker. I'll need a little bit away from you for some of this. Let's pray. Father, I thank you as we come together as church this morning that we can celebrate so many different things. And Lord, as we looked at gratitude last week and just seeing how much you give us, how much you provide, how much you speak into moments, how much you just are around us in every moment of our life. Father, let's come this morning and just bring that gratitude. We bring our praise to you and our worship, thanking you for the amazing God that you are. I pray for our service, Lord, that we do, Lord, that we'll just know you, we'll be reminded of you this morning, we'll learn more of your heart, the people around us and your heart for us. In Jesus' name. Amen. are our miracle worker. You are our promise keeper. You are our light in the darkness. And Father, I just thank you this morning that we can come in these moments with all the different things we do, that we can be reminded of your goodness. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So have a seat. I think, has Kerry got any notices? I don't bother calling you up.
Kerry hasn't got any notices, but what I will just say, because I think it's kind of got lost somewhere, we used to do a book group about 18 months ago, pre-pandemic. Everything's pre-pandemic, isn't it? We're just restarting it, so if anyone's interested, do talk to me. 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening, currently at my house, and it's just for people who love reading and love chatting. A little bit of both goes on, and usually it's books for pleasure, take a bit of a mix, people get a choice. So if anyone's interested in joining that, let me know.
Thank you. Impromptu notice. Thank you very much. Christopher, I believe you have a few things to do.
I do. Esther and Josh, you'll need to come and join me because it's been about 3 your birthdays. Is Esther here? Now because you're so old, I'm tempted to get you to pray for each other, but I won't do that, so don't worry, still come. But I'm going to ask you, what's the one thing you'd like church to be praying for each of you? So I'll get these around the right way. 18? 15? Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So who'd like to go first? What is the thing that an 18-year-old or a 15-year-old really needs us to? Jesus, so you just started, so you're 2 years away, aren't you? You've chosen your subject, and to pray for school, and what you've chosen, he's taken that, so you can't have that now.
No, well, I'm not doing GCSEs.
I know. We've got A-levels in a year's time.
Yeah, probably A-levels, because I don't know how they're going to be graded.
Yeah. You have to start thinking about your future as well. Yeah. Anything you'd like to be doing all this time?
Probably university.
Something, anything in particular?
Occupational therapy.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll pray for both of you. Just be encouraged at church, we'll be praying for you all over the next year. Dear God, we thank you that you are a promise keeper. Thank you that for both Josh and Esther, you've made a promise to care for them, to guide them. Thank you they've been part of a Christian church for so long. At each step of the way, you've been there to guide and lead them. We thank you so much for their gifts. Thank you for the way they encourage each other. Thank you for their humour, and thank you for the way that they encourage people around them at school. Pray especially for Josh as he starts studying those subjects that he's chosen, and that as he prepares for that first set of exams, that you will be with him. Please help him to balance all the things that go on in a young person's life, that his friendships will continue to blossom, studies will be fruitful, and grow in his knowledge and understanding. Pray for Esther as well. We thank you that she's had such an impact on school already. Through her caring nature, through her wisdom and her ideas, helps people around her. Really pray that you will also help her. You'll help her with wisdom, that as she prepares her applications for university, you'll give her what she needs to be successful in exams and in life. Thank you, you're with us always. Amen. Thank you.
You can see behind me a picture of Baba. I'm kind of, yes, that is the same page I have on my phone, so we should be in order. We're going to test how well Ben and I can work together this morning. Yes, that can be tricky, couldn't it? So Baba is our compassion child. That we've been sponsoring him now for 3 years. Can anybody believe that? For 3 years. He is now 10. And his birthday is in January, right at the end of January. Do you know what I'm going to do this? So you can still hear me, I hope. But I can look this way as well, just to make sure. So Baba is 10, and his birthday will be in 3 months' time. And his school year is year 6, the equivalent of year 6. So who's in year 6 here? Yes, we have 4 of our kids who are in year 6, so Baba is the same age as you guys. Now I'm not sure he's learning quite the same things, but we will find out a little bit more. So if we click on My Life, we see a little bit of information starting to load about Baba. So he has his mother and father and his hobbies. So who loves football? Tom does. We've got Liam loving football. Matt and Ethan's hands are straight up there, and Noah at the back. We've got Caduce and Mel also in there, the running. So Baba is in your group. He loves football as well. He also loves biking, so riding around on his bike. Who's got a bike? Ben's got a bike, he loves riding around on his bike. Millie and Tom, yes. So I bet Baba would love riding around with you on the bike. So he loves biking and he loves group games. Now his dad is a farmer, and that's the job that he does. And his mum is what they call a homemaker. So that's a mum that is at home making sure everything is in order and kids go to school and there's enough food on the table and clothes are clean. It's a busy job. Who around here has been part of doing that job? Being a homemaker? Louise, Ben, Jill, yeah, Belle, Sharon, there's a few different people waving at me. So yes, being a homemaker, tough job, isn't it? It's why I go to work full time, because I don't want that job. Education, we've already talked about him, he's in year 6. Now if we click across to what I'm learning, this is what Baba gets up to during a day. So it says if we were to visit Baba's project, then here is what you might see happening. So you might see at the beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning. How many of you are at school at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Noah is. You're at school at 8 o'clock in the morning. Wow, impressive. Is that because your mum makes you? Yeah. You just have to go with your mum, is that right? Yes, I feel sorry for you, Noah. You get an extra gold star this morning. So 8 o'clock, Baba will be getting there, and he will have his very first lesson, but he also gets breakfast. So that's part of what happens in his project. He gets milk, bread, and porridge. That would usually be on the menu. And then they learn some Bible stories and sing songs. At 10:30, they get a bit of a break, and so they get to go out and have fun and play. So I imagine the first thing Baba's going to do is what? Play football, yes. I imagine he's going to find a ball and start kicking it around with his friends. At 11, they've got what they call social lessons. So this is where they learn some life skills. And that really means things like how to develop healthy self-esteem. So thinking about knowing that we're okay, that we're good enough for what we need to do. And that's such an important thing, isn't it? So they learn some life lessons, and then at 12, it's more food. So they have rice, beans, and sagabo. I don't know if I've pronounced that right, but it's a local food made of millet or corn, and maybe some spaghetti. Who eats that for their lunch? Anyone? Have rice, beans, and sagabo for their lunch? No? What do you have for your lunch? Anyone want to put their hand up and tell me what they have for lunch? Tom? Shout it out loud. Yes. Yes. That sounds absolutely great. Hannah, what do you get for your lunch at school? You get a sandwich, yes. So sandwiches, maybe chips, it could be something like that. That tends to be what we have, so quite different for Baba, isn't it? At 1 o'clock, there's maybe some health lessons, and this is where the kids learn how to brush their teeth, or learn how to make sure they don't catch a nasty illness called malaria. Who knows how we catch malaria? Any kids know how we catch that? Rita knows. Rita, fill us in. Yes, so a little mosquito makes you very ill. So this is some of the things they teach the children, is how to keep themselves healthy. Because where Baba lives, not every child grows up learning those things. So it can be really helpful to learn that. And then at 2 o'clock, they do a bit of letter writing. And that's where we get to see, we get letters from Baba every few months, and we've got a new one from him that we'll share in a moment. And then at 3 o'clock, it says a couple of things, they start to do some things called vocational training. Now that means learning stuff about jobs they might want to do in the future. So they might do a bit of hairdressing, they might do some sewing, they might be mechanical things, looking at how engines work and fixing things. So there's lots of different stuff that goes on. So it's a bit different to our school, isn't it, really, what Baba gets up to. Now, he does also learn other lessons as well, but for the project, which is what we provide money towards, it means he gets breakfast, he gets lunch, he gets a health check and in education to learn how to keep himself healthy, and he also has the opportunity to play and learn with his friends. There's lots of great things that Baba can do. Okay, so if we pop back, then I think we're just going over to the slide. So we had a new picture of Baba arrive. This is how tall he's got. I probably should have put the old picture on there of 3 years ago, because I don't know if you remember, but he was about Tom's size, I think, and he had a tiny, sort of really little happy smile on his face, but he was small, and now he's grown really tall. So that's Baba. The next slide will show us his letter, I think. That's his picture. He drew a truck. We'll look at that in a minute. So this is what he says. He says, "Dear New Life Church Sudbury, hello. I am very happy to give you my news and my family news. I hope to hear from you. I am very happy right now. It's raining here almost every day." Ooh, now that makes me wonder, because I don't think we're very happy when it rains every day, are we? So it's raining here almost every day, and everywhere the vegetation is green, and it's during this period that we have wild fruits like shears that I really enjoy. So now we know why he's grateful about the rain, because it means there's lots of lovely greenery and foods are growing. With the holidays, my parents promised me to send me to a Bible camp in September, and I can't wait for this. What do you plan to do during the holidays? Do you enjoy the rainy season? Please pray for me so that God can give us a good season with much crops, and so that I spend good holidays. I pray that God will bless you and allow us to write to each other soon. Your friend, Baba. And then his drawing was a truck, which Ben skipped over. So there we go, that's his drawing of a truck. I think that's a pretty good truck. It looks like it's kind of extended at the back, doesn't it? Tom, would that be like he's dumping something, do you think, off the back of his truck? Yeah, I thought it looked a bit like that. So Baba loves the rainy season, and when I got that letter, I wrote back to him and told him a little bit about our season, told him it wasn't the rainy season here. I sent him a picture of our local area and told him a little bit about some of the things that each of you got up to that I knew about over the holidays, what people had done. So he's had that letter hopefully arriving anytime soon, and we should get another letter back for him before Christmas. So what you might like to think about is I will be starting to put together a letter for sending to him for Christmas. So if any of you have got anything special you'd like to add into that letter, let me know, and I will create a letter from all of us wishing him and his family a lovely Christmas. So the next thing we've got is we're going to do some praying. Now this partial photo on here is something we found on the Compassion website, and it's actually a little bookmark. We're going to put the link onto Sharing Life so that you can see it. And that bookmark gives you 7 days with a different topic each day to pray for Baba. And you can see the first two up there. On day 1, you want to pray for school, and on day 2, you're going to pray for health, and then it takes you through and gives you something different to pray for Baba every day. I'd absolutely love it if you could maybe have a go at praying for Baba regularly over these next couple of weeks for those 7 things. So it's on Sharing Life, and I'm sure Ben will print a few if anybody would like one. He's making a face, but he will print a few so that you can have one if you'd like it as a proper one to have in your Bible or somewhere. Now, before the kids go out, we are going to do one final thing, and that is praying for Baba right now. So you can see 3 things up here, and there is a second slide as well. So we're going to be praying some of these things for Baba. So we've got the first one. I've realised then it's probably quite tiny because everyone's sat at the back. It might teach them to sit at the front next time, but I don't know. Praying that Baba will have hope is number 1. Praying for good role models is number 2. And praying that Baba will be a blessing to others is number 3. So just in your little groups, if you don't need to sort of move anywhere, you're just with the groups and the people you're sitting with, just pray for those 3 things together for Baba. And then Ben will move the slide on after 1 minute, and there's 3 more things to pray for Baba, and then we will be done. Okay, so I'm hoping to hear a gentle whisper of noise across the building as you all pray together. All right, off you go.
Okay, there are 3 other things on there now. So the first one is pray that Baba will dismiss the lies of poverty. And it's a great bit from Psalm 139:14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God made you for a purpose. He loves you. His works are good. Rejoice in his love for you and pray that Baba will know God's love. His circumstances may speak negatively. Pray that he will know the power and truth of God's word. That's brilliant prayer. So something we can pray for Baba. Sanitation, very practical things in Baba's community. They don't have flushing toilets near where they are, so that's quite a strange thing for all of us to imagine if you had to walk a long time to go to the toilet. None of us always would hate that, but that's Baba's situation. And then also safe water. You turn the tap on and you expect water to come out. For Baba, bless him, he doesn't have that ease. So choose one of those 3 things. We're going to pray again, and then when we're done, we'll let the youngsters go on.
Lovely. Thank you all very much for praying for Baba. So please remember Baba over these coming weeks. Use the reminder that's in the Sharing Life, or chat to Ben if you need a physical copy. And we will be remembering Baba as we go through these next few weeks. We are also planning, Rita, because I keep forgetting, please can you add Baba to our lovely A to Z list of prayer every month, and then if you remind me, I will send you something each month. I keep trying to remember, and occasionally I do. So we're just going to try and add Baba into our monthly prayers as part of our church family. So that's it from us. The kids can all head out. So Crash, you're going with Chris, and kids in primary school, you're heading with Louise. And youth, you don't get to go, I'm afraid. SJ. So the youth are going to enjoy listening to SJ this morning.
We're going to sing one song and then SJ is going to speak. They've got communion this morning as well, as part of our service. So the topic for SJ is Who You Say I Am, and I couldn't resist but not sing the song beforehand. I know we sang it a couple of weeks ago, but it's a great song to sing. So let's stand and sing this together.
It's really lovely to be with you this morning in person after a really long time away. And who can imagine 18 months ago that today I'd be coming to you in the middle of a pandemic, in the midst of a fuel crisis, and after the sort of semi-apocalyptic rain yesterday, I'm just left wondering, is it boils next or frogs? Anyway, I think we've all seen in the last 10 days or so the impact of the things that we say. When there's no fuel crisis, don't panic buy becomes fuel crisis! Panic buy! And now it's not panic buying, it's just buying if we can. And there's a weight to things that we say. Things that we say, though, can be genuinely incorrect. And I've got an example I hope that we're going to play in a second, a little film. That is one of my favourite examples from a shopping channel. It's a man who's trying to sell a digital camera. You might remember digital cameras. They were like phones, but without WhatsApp and sat-navs. That's what we call the camera. And this man has been demonstrating this camera and is trying to show what a good camera is because of the photo that's been printed out. You might remember printing out photos. It was what we used to do before you had a phone. And he's trying to show how high quality this picture is that you can, remember, print out this picture. So hopefully we'll be able to see this film.
Right? And we'll print it out. Now while we're doing that, let me show you something really impressive. That picture, remember the picture of the horse I showed you earlier? Well, here it is, blown up. This is a big horse. Order now, you get the camera, you get the printer, 4x optical zoom, Schneider lens, photo printer, SD card. Look at that horse. The bushy, the hooves. Okay, my producer Tara Gates just told me this isn't a horse, it's a butterfly. Yeah, actually, it may in fact be a moth. But look at what is zoomed in. I mean, you can see details in the antenna.
I might have to make watch it again because it makes me laugh so much. Look at that horse. Look at that horse. Go on, let's have it again, please.
Now while we're doing that, let me show you something really impressive. That picture, remember the picture of the horse I showed you earlier? Well, here it is, blown up. This is a big horse. Order now, you get the camera, you get the printer, 4x optical zoom, Schneider lens, photo printer, SD card. Look at that horse. The bushy tail, the big teeth, the hooves. Okay, my producer Tara Gates just told me this isn't a horse, it's a butterfly. Yeah, actually, it may in fact be a moth. But look at what this zoomed in. I mean, you can see details in the antenna.
It's the best laugh you'll have all day. Just go and look it up and watch it all the time on YouTube if you have a bad day. It's his commitment to the detail in that picture of the horse. Look at the bushy tail, and it might not be a horse, it's a butterfly. My producer Tara Kate just told me. It may in fact be a moth. So the whole time he's showing you a picture of a moth, and he's convinced that it's a picture of a horse. There is relevance shoehorned in somewhere down the line, but anyway, it's just such a great thing. He's so convinced that he's showing you a horse. We can see the evidence that it's a moth, and even when he's corrected, it's not quite what he thought he was. So we've got a passage this morning where Jesus is not exactly who we think he might be, because he's got a tendency to do that, Jesus has. He can be completely understandable and utterly confusing all at the same time. And we're going to look at one of those passages this morning, and we're looking at Matthew chapter 16 and reading from verse 13. I'm going to be reading it from Tom's Wright's translation of the New Testament. So Matthew chapter 16 from verse 13 down to verse 20. Jesus came to Caesarea Philippi. There he put this question to his disciples: "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" "John the Baptist," they replied. "Others say Elijah. Others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "What about you?" he asked them. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You're the Messiah," he said. "You're the Son of the living God." "God's blessing on you, Simon, son of John," answered Jesus. "Flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you. It was my Father in heaven. And I've got something to tell you too. You are Peter, the rock, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell won't overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you tie up on earth will have been tied up in heaven, and whatever you untie on earth will have been untied in heaven. Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. So Jesus in this passage uses one of his favourite tactics, which is asking questions. He's full of questions, is Jesus, and his teaching often asks his audience questions. Sometimes in response to a question, he will ask another question. And here he is with his disciples, and his conversation starter this time is, who do people say the Son of Man is? And that phrase, Son of Man, might seem a bit confusing to start with, but if you've read any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke or John, then you might have come across that phrase before. And it's one of Jesus' favourite ways of talking about himself. It's used a bit in the Old Testament, especially with two of the prophets, Ezekiel and Daniel, and sometimes when it's used, it just means like an ordinary bloke, the average guy, an individual human being. But in the book of Daniel, it's given a new layer of meaning, this phrase, Son of Man. It's someone who Daniel sees in a vision, someone who comes with clouds and approaches God, so a bit more than just an ordinary man. So Jesus is asking the disciples, who do people say that he is? And they answer, John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets. So people who've seen Jesus starting to get the idea that Jesus is a prophet. So a prophet, someone who tells out the words of God, a person with a message for people. But Jesus carries on with the questioning, what about you? Who do you say that I am? And Peter steps in with some more titles. You are Christ, the Son of the living God. The disciples have never been taught to call Jesus Christ. They must have picked it up from somewhere. But what does this word mean? And why did Jesus then at the end tell the disciples not to tell anyone? Sometimes when you ask a question, that reply needs a bit more of a clarification. Sometimes jobs need a bit more of a clarification. So if you meet someone that's a teacher, then you might instantly say, oh, what subject do you teach? Or if someone says they're ambassador, you might say, do you have a reception of prayer or shame? No, you might say, where are you an ambassador for? For which country? And it's the same with that title that Peter gives Jesus. So Peter calls Jesus Messiah or Christ. And we sort of forget that Jesus Christ isn't his surname, that it's not Joseph and Mary and Jesus Christ, their son. But Christ means Messiah, which means anointed one. And anointed is not necessarily a word that we use very often. I don't know, I imagine Nigella might anoint a chicken somehow with oil, mightn't she? But I can't think of many times that I have actually used the word anointed outside of church. And the word anointed sort of needs another bit. Even when I talked about Nigella and the chicken, I had to say Nigella anointed it with oil. Like, you have to have a bit more to it than just anointed. Anointed for what purpose? Anointed to do what? So if you are anointed, it means that you've been chosen to do a particular job. I guess for that chicken, it's to be my lunch. But Jesus was anointed in a different way. And what job then was Jesus anointed for? Again, in the Old Testament, you'll find all sorts of different people are anointed. Sometimes kings are anointed. They're appointed by God to do a particular task. Maybe it was a prophet who is said to be anointed, and they've got to go. It might be actually workmen in the Old Testament are sometimes said to be anointed. They're chosen to do particular jobs. Sometimes even foreign kings in the Old Testament are said to be anointed. So prophets are people that go out and tell God's words, and people that are anointed are more than just a prophet. They're not just there to tell people about God, they're supposed to do something as well. So someone that is anointed kind of brings together the words from God and an action combined. And at this point, when Jesus was around, there was an expectation for a new Messiah, a new anointed one. And people didn't really know how that important person was going to appear. In fact, there have been several people already who claimed to be the Messiah, who claimed to be this anointed one, this special person. Some people thought that this new anointed one was going to rise up like a warrior, like the heroes of the Old Testament. Some people thought that that new anointed person, this new Messiah, was going to come in and change the way of the temple and start new ways of true worship. Everybody thought that the prophecies in the Old Testament would be fulfilled in this new person, this new Messiah that was coming. They didn't really think it was going to be someone that was divine and that they were going to be God. They really didn't know how it was going to pan out in practice. But people knew what they thought the Messiah should be doing. The Jews had gone through some really tough times up to this point in history. And that throughout that whole time there was this growing feeling, this growing expectation that the last hope for them was going to be this person coming, this promised Messiah, this promised anointed one. And they expected this prophet to come and not tell them where the people were going wrong, because people knew what was going wrong. It was the Romans. The Romans were the cause of all their problems. The Romans in the land, taxing them, increasing poverty, making them worship their ruler as if they were God. And they wanted a Messiah who was going to come and lead a mutiny. They wanted someone to come and kick out the Romans, lead a whole new movement to release the people from their oppressive rulers, and bring in this new era that they wanted of peace and justice. That's what the Messiah should be doing. That was what they wanted. And the people around Jesus, according to the disciples, have grasped a little bit of who Jesus is. It's clear in verse 14. The people see Jesus as some kind of wild prophet. But when Peter answers Jesus' question, he goes further. Jesus wasn't just going to speak out God's words, he was going to do something about them. And that was dangerous. There had been people that had claimed to be the Messiah before, and they tried to overthrow the Romans, and they'd ended up dead. Peter was signing up to challenge the authorities, but also potentially to overthrow them. And if this information had got out at the wrong moment, then the lives of Jesus and the disciples would be on the line. And we know, with the benefit of history, that Jesus was going to give up his life, but not yet, not at this point. The disciples were expecting Jesus to do something huge and dramatic. So people have been waiting for this political and military hero to come and bring them freedom. And sometimes I think we look at that and we think, well, how narrow-minded? Why did they just think that Jesus was going to come and overthrow the Romans? Because our view of what Jesus is and what he does becomes kind of with this layer of spirituality. But in New Testament times, people would have thought of us as the weird ones. They believed in a God who was full of power, who could defeat a whole city with just a few trumpets and some marching, a God who could bring down armies. Their God was full of power and might, and here you are telling me that this one person is just going to die, going to suffer and be killed. Kind of unthinkable to Peter. And just a few verses on, you'll see how badly he gets things wrong. Because Jesus has this habit of not being quite who or what you think he is. Just when you think you've got Jesus sussed, he does something else that is surprising. He throws a curveball in there. You think he's one thing, and he turns out to be something else sometimes. He's complex. He's hard to get to know. I guess that is the joy of our faith being a relationship that grows and builds. The people are expecting this powerful hero to overthrow the Romans, and Jesus says he's going to come and die. It's so utterly confusing. So what might this story mean for us? Who is Jesus? Who do you say that Jesus is? I'm not talking here to you as an individual, but to you as a church. Who do you as a church say that Jesus is? Where might you have got it a little bit wrong? I'm not saying that you have got it wrong, but I think it's really important for us all to engage our brains in church, and not just to listen to what our speakers or youth leaders or the elders say, because your favourite speaker can be wrong. Your youth leaders can be wrong. The disciples have been with Jesus for years, and they still miss the point regularly. Sometimes what we think about Jesus and God isn't accurate. Sometimes there might be things that we hear at church that might not be right. And sometimes it's not just the words that are said, but the impression that we're left with of God. And when we're in church, we need to, and listening to your favourite podcast or whatever it is, we need to work out if what we're being told is a true image of God, which means that we need to get to know him personally, so that we can weigh up what we're being told with the Jesus that we read about and see in the pages of the Bible. Does the picture that you're being presented with match up with the picture that you see in the Bible? Are you being told it's a horse when it's a butterfly? It may, in fact, be a moth. So who do you as church say that Jesus is? And more importantly, who are you as a church telling? How are you living out what you believe in your communities as a church? So the Jews in Jesus' day were looking for someone to save them from the Romans. That was their big issue. That was their big question. And Jesus, of course, responds to that question with a question. But he talks in this passage about building his church, building his community. The community that knows who he is and uses that knowledge to build a better world. And what are the big questions for our world, for our culture, for the culture that this church is in? What questions are people asking? Have we, the church, been listening hard enough? Have we, the church, been asking enough questions? Who we say Jesus is should be something that unites us, that brings us together, that builds our family bonds stronger and tighter. As we learn who more of Jesus is, we discover more of his love and forgiveness in our own lives, and that means that we learn to love and forgive each other as well. So there are lessons for us as a church to learn when we ask who Jesus is. But then who do you say that Jesus is? If you spend any time in church or at Sunday school or in youth groups, you'll know that if anyone ever asks a question, the answer is always Jesus. That's the right answer. But Peter's answer isn't something that Jesus had told them to say. He wasn't just repeating back the words that Jesus had taught them. Verse 17 makes it really clear that this is something that had been revealed to Peter by God. So who is Jesus? Who is Jesus to you? If you're totally honest with yourself, who do you think Jesus is? What is he to you? What would you like him to be to you? Jesus might not be who you think he is. His words can be clear and exciting, or challenging and difficult. He is simple and the most complicated person you can imagine. He turns the world upside down and makes it make sense all at the same time. But when it gets to you personally, who do you say Jesus is? That means you've actually got to put a bit of work in. You need to find out who God is and find out who Jesus is for yourself. You can't just rely on what other people tell you. You have to get to know him. So who do you say that Jesus is, and what are you basing that on? What have you experienced for yourself? For you, is Jesus the Son of the living God? Is he just a nice person from history, or is he alive? There was something right at the beginning of that story that I skipped over, and that was the location. So we're told that the disciples are in a place called Caesarea Philippi, and this was a town at the very north of Palestine. It was a couple of days' walk from the Sea of Galilee, and that's sort of the area that we normally think of Jesus and the disciples hanging out and working. They were much further north. And this passage doesn't say that they were visiting people that they knew, or that they were staying in the house of someone that was supporting them. There's no real details about what they're doing there. And apparently this town is very beautiful, but it was known for something other than that. It was a centre of worship for the gods Pan and Baal, and it was also a centre of worship for Caesar himself, Philip. And there, in the middle of this place, surrounded by these temples, surrounded by Greek and Roman culture, by all these places devoted to other gods, by people coming there to worship all these other gods, Jesus says, who do you say I am? And Peter's saying he's not just the anointed Messiah, this one they've been waiting for, but the Son of the living God, living and working, not like those dead gods in the temples, not like the Caesar who was far away and unapproachable. Is Jesus living for you? Do you think of him that way? Who do you say that Jesus is? Especially when you're not in a church context. Jesus took those disciples away from an area that was perhaps safe and protected and into somewhere that was a bit more wild and potentially frightening for them, with all these different influences. When you're out of a church culture, when it's safe to say that you know who Jesus is, who do you say Jesus is then? When you're surrounded by people that don't necessarily love God, or a place that is full of a culture that's not Christian, who do you say Jesus is then? What you say in church might be one thing, but who you say Jesus is on a Monday morning, or a Friday night, or a Saturday lunchtime might be something completely different. How is your life different because of who you say Jesus is? What difference does it make to your life? It's all very well agreeing that Jesus is the Messiah, the anointed one. How does that change who you are? How does it impact you? You might know all the right answers, even when the answer is Jesus, even when the answer isn't Jesus. You might know all the right answers. You might be very well versed in a school of Bible facts. But how does it impact you? It's useless. All that knowledge is useless unless it changes who you are. Because who we say Jesus is not something we do with our words, but with our whole lives. Jesus isn't just looking for you to get the right answers to the questions. He's looking for more. And he's not actually just looking for you to do what he says. Christianity is not just about obeying the laws, it's about that relationship. And a whole new attitude that springs from who we say Jesus is and where we put him in our lives. Who do you say Jesus is? And maybe it's not when you're around other people that are not part of church culture. Maybe for you, it's that 4 a.m. anxious thoughts. Who is Jesus to you when you're at your most anxious? And every time this church gives me a topic, it ends up being a really hard lesson for me to learn as well. And this time was no exception. And I guess for the last several months, for many of us, life has had its ups and downs, hasn't it? There's been uncertainty around so many things. The health of people that we love, an uncertain job market, shortages in supermarkets, the cost of electricity and fuel increasing, and added financial uncertainty that brings, and now anxieties fueled by a lack of fuel. The more I thought about those anxieties in my own life as well, the more I realised what a disconnect there was between the way that I had been thinking about Jesus and the person that he really is. And that can be when I get frustrated and a bit cross with God, when God doesn't conform to who I think he is, to what I think he should be doing, to the answers that I pray, rather than just praying questions and then letting God work. I'm the one holding up that picture of God saying, look at that horse. And I'm completely misled. That's not what the picture of God actually is. And I can point out all the detail in that picture of God, and I can be completely misled. I don't know if anyone else feels a bit like that sometimes. Who I say Jesus is when I'm standing up here or when I'm in my own church might be very different to the life that I have outside, whether that's with other people or when I'm on my own, or whether it's just me and God. If I haven't quoted Krish Kandiah to you before, then I haven't spoken here enough. This little book, Disciples, is excellent. He goes through lots of different passages in Matthew. I want to read a quote from a chapter about this passage, which he calls disconnected. Sometimes we treat God like the father we always wanted, the best mate we never had, the spouse we never found, the project we need to keep us busy, the puzzle we have to complete. These projections can be fantasies controlled by our own desires, just as the first century Jews saw Jesus as the mutineer they were hoping for. We need to allow God to reveal himself to us as he revealed himself to Peter. There is no disconnection in God. He is the same yesterday, today and forever, and never lets us down. How about you? Is there anywhere in your life that doesn't say that Jesus is the anointed one of God, the Son of the living God? Anywhere that you are trying to make Jesus into something that he is not, someone that he's not? Anywhere that you need to get him to reconnect as he really is, and not just how he is in your head? Anywhere that you need to turn back to the Bible and get to know the Jesus that's in those pages? Where you need to spend time with God praying and getting to know God and what he wants for you? I'm going to pray now. Loving Heavenly Father, thank you for this passage and thank you that you revealed yourself to Peter. I pray, Father, that you would reveal yourself to each one of us now. Would you help us to know who you really are? And through knowing who you really are, may we become who we are really designed to be. I pray that our head knowledge might become heart knowledge and our lives would be changed because of you. Amen.
As we take communion, as we come to communion, we'll give you some time to think that through. We're going to sing "O Perfect Love." Just take that moment to answer that question, to think further on what that might mean for you. Some of that saying sorry for boxing God, and communion and the cross is a beautiful image about visualising where we are and what we do and what we bring. And some of us just to say sorry that we don't match up to those expectations we put in our head. Sit and sing this song together.
Apologies for the fact that it would have been a lovely song, and maybe we should just read the words for the moment. I'm afraid I don't know quite what the tune like, because I can't pick it up. Thank you for saving me.
let me see and keep on saving me. Let's stand. Shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you love, you bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in us, so we pour out our praise to you only. Father, thank you that we get moments like this to hear your word, hear your challenge. To ask questions that are more than things that we just go, yes. Lord, I thank you that the Spirit within us is a Spirit that challenges, a Spirit that speaks. And Father, I thank you as we come to take communion together. That Spirit is within us. Lord, as we sit with the noise around us, as we take the elements, as we take the bread and the wine, as we take the symbolism of that, Lord, just help us to ask the question this morning, who do you say I am? And we know as we ask that question, as we sit with the noise around us, that you will answer. We believe in a God that speaks, in a spirit within us that just guides and challenges us.
We'll bring the packs of breadsticks round if you take a pack from the with you, and then we'll participate in that.
Matt, would you just pass the things around?
Thank for the wine as well. I know you've done them, but let's just thank God. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for that incredible sacrifice. Thank you for God, for what you mean to each one of us, and we just thank you for your blood that was shed out of that intense love. And we just want to praise you and worship you and help us to draw closer to you. Help what happened on that cross to have relevance in our day-to-day lives, both on a Sunday and both throughout the week. We just want to worship you in Jesus.
Father, we thank you for the time we've had together this morning. We thank you for saving us. We thank you that you are the great big God who walks with us each day. We ask that as we leave this morning, that we would leave knowing that we are in your presence and that we can have confidence in you. May we be a blessing to those around us this week. In your name, amen. Thank you all. We're now finished. Just a little reminder, there is out by the tea and coffee, I think, the memory book for Eleni. So if anyone didn't get a chance at her memorial service a couple of weeks ago, or would like to write a memory in there, the idea was to put some things in there that can be shared with the family and with the children over the coming weeks and months of things that we remember about Eleni and loved about her. So if you'd like to take that opportunity, please do make an effort to write in the book, and we can then pass it back to the family for them to keep. That's just by the teas and coffees. Thanks everyone. Go and chat, go and drink.